the questions of life have answers. The problems of life have solutions. Peace today and hope for tomorrow can be yours when you rest in God. The following program is a true story, depicting real events and real people from the Bible. Your host, Randy Weiss, is inviting you to join him in faith today with God.
Welcome to another episode of Today with God. In a moment, you will hear two words that change everything. I'm serious. Your reaction to these two words is just about all that matters. The rest of life, well, it's going to be lived in the details following your reaction. Two words can truly make all the difference and change everything. Of course, if everything were already perfect in your life, you would not want anything to change. If your life was perfect, you would be perfectly content with everyone and everything, and everyone would love you because you treated everyone perfectly. But I have never met anyone with perfect health, perfect relationships, the perfect spouse, or perfect children. Most people don't have that perfect career or perfect attitude. Perhaps you lack a perfect past or have little hope for a perfect future. Nevertheless, we all want perfect contentment. I guess a reality check is in order. Maybe parts of your life are great, but other parts are only tolerable in total. Something is still lacking. Your life is not really perfect. Well, like I said, two words can change everything. You'll hear them in a moment. Your reaction will determine your future. Today with God.
And after this, he saw a publican named Matthew Levi sitting at the toll gate for the receipt of the customs.
Follow me.
Jesus said, "Follow me." What do you do with those two words? He didn't say donate your money. He didn't say join the choir. He didn't say stop smoking or join a certain political party. He said, "Follow me." You know, any of the other things might have been easier. What you have, what you do, what you should not do will probably be defined by your reaction to those two words. If you follow Jesus, your money goes along and is spent in ways that He prescribes. Your actions are determined by His instructions, and your habits, both good and bad, are reevaluated in the light of His likes and dislikes. He will help you discontinue what disgusts Him, just as He will empower you to do that which will honor and please Him. Jesus calls you to follow Him. But He doesn't leave you alone on the journey. He stays with you through lean times and dream times. Here's the question: will you follow Him? Jesus calls you just as He called Matthew Levi the tax collector. He calls each of us to follow him. How will you respond? What will it mean when you're faced with challenges? Do you know how Jesus handled difficult situations? Well, let's take a very brief look for instruction today with God.
And Jesus went up a hill to pray and spent the whole night there praying to God.
Jesus felt the need to be alone. He prayed before he selected his disciples. He prayed in advance of ministering to the crowds of followers. Perhaps Jesus just wanted to take time to worship and express his love for his heavenly Father. The point is that Jesus did not ignore alone time in private prayer. Do you take time to pray? Personally, I think this is one of the most important things any believer can do. Each of us who follows Jesus must invest time in prayer to discover and pursue our purpose. It is how we learn to follow and obey God's instructions. If you've been thinking about your relationship with God, take some time to quietly talk to Him. You know, God will hear your prayer, and I believe He will draw you to Himself. If there are distractions or sinful obstacles blocking the road to Him, He will even help you remove them if you ask Him. God will establish your path if you walk with Him and develop a habit of prayer. Now, don't get discouraged. Make the commitment to pray. Develop a discipline to include a time for prayer in your busy schedule. Remember, even Jesus needed to pray. His example would be good to follow. Now, we're going to move on, but before we do, I want to return to the call of Matthew when he met Jesus. I want to make sure you noticed one critical aspect of the event. Today, with God.
In Matthew chapter 13, Jesus shares a parable about sowing seed on good ground where it can produce crop that can yield 30, 60, and even 100 times the amount that was sown. As stewards of what God entrusts us with, we're responsible to sow into good ground that produces a good crop. In the business world, we call this a good ROI, or return on investment. I want to ask you to prayerfully consider making a good investment into the ministry outreach of CrossTalk International. The ROI is evidence that the Lord is doing some great things through this ministry. Several years back, our supporters made it possible for us to build a brand new leprosy clinic in the heart of Orissa, India. Every single month, CrossTalk provides all of the food and medicine that is needed for that ongoing clinic, serving dozens of leper patients. Last year, we took on the responsibility to provide food and housing for the children of those leper patients in an effort to help stop the ongoing spread of leprosy to their children. We have 20 different native missionaries that are on the ground throughout the 1040 window, speaking the language of their people and evangelizing the lost as their full-time occupation. Many of them have already planted churches and are moving on to plant new churches. But we're needing support. Our annual missions budget is only reached through the generosity of our supporters. Right now, we need to raise $11,000 for our leprosy outreach, $7,200 for our native missionaries, $8,600 for our Cuba outreach, and we need to raise money to complete the production of the next series of Today with God, featuring the Gospel of Luke. Your generous monthly support or one-time gift, it will sow vital seeds on good ground and reap a fruitful harvest. Thank you for your consideration to invest in the ministry outreach of CrossTalk International. All checks and gifts should be made payable to CrossTalk Missions. I can assure you that the ROI of your investment will be one that the Lord is happy with.
And after this, he saw a publican named Matthew Levi sitting at the toll gate for the receipt of the customs.
Follow me.
Matthew Levi was at work when he met Jesus. His job was to collect taxes. In ancient Israel, that was a lucrative but hated position. Tax collectors were generally identified as greedy and dishonest. They were not welcome in the synagogue because they were ritually unclean. You see, a tax collector's livelihood was based on the amount of excess charges they could extract from honest citizens. Much has been written about ancient tax collectors and how they prospered through demanding more payment than what was actually due to be paid in tax to the government. But little is discussed about the actual types of taxes that were paid by citizens of the Roman Empire. In some ways, modern society has copied many of the same oppressive tax codes. Tolls were charged on the main roads, at the harbors, and in the markets. Each mobile cart was taxed based on how many wheels were on the wagon. Even the animal that pulled the load was assessed as an additional fee to the owner. Ancient Jews paid taxes on certain purchases similar to a sales tax or an excise tax. Poll taxes were charged on every citizen. Men were taxed from the age of 14 to 65. Women actually paid a tax from the age of 12 to 65. Farmers were charged a land use tax in the form of 10% for grain and 20% on all wine or oil. They even paid an earned income tax, but it was only 1%. Scholars do report that there was rarely any extortion on that flat tax. Perhaps modern politicians could take a lesson, but they'd never be satisfied with 1% anyway. The point is that taxes were pervasive, and those who collected the taxes were literally given a license to steal by the government. So nobody became a tax collector unless they loved money more than people, because people hated tax collectors. Some greedy taxmen were actually known to stop travelers on the road and coerce them to unpack their luggage so that import or export taxes could be usurped. If the citizen was unable to pay the assessment on the spot, some tax collectors became loan sharks, charging outrageous interest rates to helpless travelers ruthlessly abused on their journey. I hope these facts from history help you understand the kind of person who was asked to follow Jesus. To unmistakably make this point, a Roman writer once reported that he saw a monument to an honest tax collector. This was because no one had previously seen an honest tax collector. But Jesus knew exactly the kind of man he was calling. Jesus calls sinners. And Matthew Levi, the tax collector, was a classic sinner. Yet 2 simple words from Jesus changed everything for Matthew. Are you getting the point? Jesus tenderly said, "Follow me." Matthew stood up, left his toll basket, and turned from one of the most lucrative careers in the marketplace. In fact, he left everything to follow Jesus. That is the call to true discipleship. Personally, I relate to that form of Christianity. Many years ago, as a young man of not yet 21 years of age, I too left everything to follow Jesus. I gave up much earthly promise to secure heavenly treasure. Friends and loved ones turned away and rejected me. I was no longer welcome in the presence of my well-to-do family because they could not tolerate my faith in Jesus. You see, my loved ones were from a different religion that did not share my beliefs in the gospel that declares Jesus as Lord. But if being rejected by parents is the cost of being accepted by God, the love of God is more precious. God knew the darkness of my heart, but loved me anyway. He loved me in spite of the very wicked life I had led from the time I was a young teenager. It's not really difficult to turn from earthly promise when you discover the greater promises of eternity. But since my life is not the focus of this program, I won't use our precious time together to speak about my experiences. But please permit me to simply declare from personal, first-hand knowledge. Whatever you leave behind to follow Jesus can never be compared to the matchless value of finding God's love. If you remember nothing else that I have said, remember this truth. In the brief example we saw with Matthew Levi, I want you to know with certainty that whatever amount of wealth he gave up has been forgotten. But the Gospel of St. Matthew, penned by that tax collector who left everything to follow Jesus, remains our first book of the New Testament, and it is undoubtedly one of history's greatest treasures. But could another treasure of such value yet remain to be shared with you? There is more today with God.
Consider the fruits of a ministry worth supporting. The ministry of CrossTalk International. We are more than just television. We are ministry. We sponsor Native missionaries around the world every month. We spread the gospel with Today with God to the ends of the earth. We helped build a leprosy clinic and fund it monthly. We partner in missions through SEMA. We teach the word week in and week out. We spread God's love to the people of the world in the languages of the world. We bless the people and the land of Israel. And we're not done yet. Pray about financially supporting this fruitful ministry. 1-877-97-JESUS. Or find us on the web at crosstalk.org.
After an intense night of prayer, Jesus delivered one of the most inspired messages ever heard. If embraced, the truths you will now hear will radically change your life today with God.
Blessed are you poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who hunger now, for you shall be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh. Blessed are you when men hate you and reject you and insult you, and say you are evil, all because of the Son of Man. Be glad when that happens and dance for joy, because a great reward is kept for you in heaven, for their ancestors did the very same things to the prophets.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That's all I've got.
What do you mean that's all you've got?
How terrible for you who are rich now. You have had your easy life.
He doesn't want to be rich. He must be mad.
How terrible for you who laugh now, for you shall mourn and weep. How terrible when all men speak well of you, for their ancestors said the very same things about the false prophets. But I tell you who hear me, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. If anyone strikes you on the one cheek, let him hit the other one also. And if someone takes away your coat, let him have your shirt as well. Give to everyone who begs from you. And if someone takes what is yours, do not ask for it back again. Do for others only what you would have others do for you. If you love only the people who love you, why should you receive a blessing? For even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, why should you receive a blessing? Even sinners do that.
How could he touch her? How could he talk to her?
Disgusting.
No. Love your enemies and do good to them and lend expecting nothing back. And then you will have a great reward, for you will be sons of the Most High God. For he is good to the ungrateful and to the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful.
Save us, Jesus!
Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven.
Lead us in thy path, O Lord.
Give, and it will be given to you. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. One blind man cannot lead another. If he does, they will both fall into a ditch. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but pay no attention to the log in your own eye?
Scholars often call that message the Sermon on the Plain. I like to think of it as the upside-down message. How is poverty a blessing? If a child is hungry, how is that beneficial? If someone is crying, isn't it strange to suggest they should laugh because they are blessed? The words of Jesus seem upside down and backwards. Since prosperity and popularity are the goals sought by most people, how do you suppose Jesus expected to win that audience? Well, Jesus was not concerned with how the message would improve his standing with the crowd. He wanted the crowd to learn how to be in better standing with God. And Jesus knew that those who embraced his message would become unwelcome in a world that rejected both his message and his mission. Nevertheless, Jesus spoke of an eternal reversal of fortunes. This was good news to some and strange talk to others. He told them to dance for joy when his followers were hated because a great reward would follow their disappointment on earth. And then he reminded the crowd that they would be in good company because God's prophets had also been hated. Those who followed Jesus were not promised earthly success. Instead, they were instructed to expect suffering and rejection in this life. But instead of sadness, their affliction would become a badge of blessing to the faithful. Let's take a quick look back to see just how absurd his message seemed to some listeners. Pay particular attention to the well-to-do elderly man who couldn't restrain himself from laughing at Jesus. He was amused because it made no sense to him. Why would anyone not want to be prosperous? Jesus warned the rich man and any who harbored the same goals that they were in danger. Because if they won such an unimportant prize, they would end up with nothing of eternal value. In fact, Jesus instructed his audience to desire the reverse of what the world wanted. He urged them to react in ways that was the polar opposite of how the world taught people to react. Love your enemies. Accept unkindness without being unkind. Turn the other cheek. Watch a short clip again today with God.
18, 19, 20. That's all I've got.
What do you mean that's all you've got?
How terrible for you who are rich now. You have had your easy life.
He doesn't want to be rich. He must be mad.
How terrible for you who laugh now, for you shall mourn and weep. How terrible when all men speak well of you, for their ancestors said the very same things about the false prophets. But I tell you who hear me, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. And pray for those who mistreat you. If anyone strikes you on the one cheek, let him hit the other one also.
Observe the condition of modern society. Families are in chaos. Economies are in collapse. Governments are in turmoil. The world is upside down, and only Jesus can reformat our thinking. You may feel you have everything under control, but if you're paying attention, human society is out of control. When we visit next, I want to explore the power of a touch. Did you notice the shame on the face of the woman who appeared to be promiscuous? Did you notice the disgust on the face of the self-righteous men who derided Jesus? He touched them all. Their reactions betrayed what was in their hearts. What is in your heart? Have you been touched by the Lord? Or do you need a touch from Him? If so, please join me again as we draw near to the Lord today with God.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of Today with God from the Gospel of Luke. The Gospels of Matthew, John, and the Acts of the Apostles are also available within the 49 other episodes of this series. For more information, visit todaywithgod.org.